When our loved ones enter the hospital, we trust that they'll come home safe and sound. But what happens when grave errors occur by the supposedly life-saving doctors putting lives at risk? From amputating the wrong leg to drilling the wrong holes in the head, today we're taking a deep dive into the realm of medical mayhem. Lung and heart transplant mishap. We have the tragic saga of Jessica Santon, a spirited 17-year-old from Mexico who embarked on a courageous mission to mend her ailing heart. She ventured across borders in search of a remedy. Enter Dr. Jaggers, a celebrated maestro of pediatric surgery, armed with a successful tally of hundreds of successful transplants. All seemed promising until 5 hours into the operation. A shocking revelation struck like lightning. The donor heart and lungs were type A, a mismatch for Jessica's type O blood. The unthinkable unfolded as she slipped into a coma. But fear not, because Dr. Jagger refused to surrender. With a daring second transplant, he attempted to rectify the mishap. Alas, destiny had alternate plans in store. Almost 2 weeks later, tragedy befell young Jessica, leaving us with a bewildering whirlwind of emotions. The kidney swap. In a wacky mix-up in Milford, Massachusetts back in 2006, an 84-year-old woman went in for a gallbladder removal surgery. But things took an unexpected turn. Surgeon Patrick McKinney, facing some unexpected swelling, decided to switch from a laparoscopic to an open surgery. Unfortunately, in the midst of the chaos, McKinney ended up removing the patient's kidney instead of her gallbladder. Talk about a surgical mishap! The blunder was only discovered 3 days later by a pathologist. And to add insult to injury, it turns out the patient didn't even need the gallbladder surgery in the first place. Fortunately, her condition improved, and McKinney was allowed to continue practicing, albeit under close supervision. Lesson learned: always double-check your organs before going under the knife and the doctor. An unnecessary double mastectomy. Now, picture this. You're a 35-year-old single mom, and you get the terrifying news that you have breast cancer. Panic sets in right away. That's exactly what happened to Deirdre Eason. Trusting her doctors, she underwent a double mastectomy to stop the cancer in its tracks. But here's the twist. She never actually had cancer. It turns out a clumsy lab technician mixed up Eason's results with another patient's. Oopsie! Can you imagine the relief and then the utter disbelief? Eason took legal action against the lab, settling for an undisclosed amount. Her advice to fellow patients: always get a second opinion before jumping into major treatment decisions. An open heart invasion. A hospital had quite the hilarious mix-up. So, this patient checked in for a brain aneurysm procedure. No biggie. But then, after the cerebral angiography, she was sent back to the wrong floor. Oops! Next thing you know, a whole new team of doctors scooped her up for an impromptu heart surgery extravaganza. Can you believe it? 1 hour into the procedure, they got a phone call screaming, "Abort mission! Abort mission!" Luckily for her, the patient came out stable. But seriously, how did she end up in that wild heart surgery adventure? Talk about a mistake that should have never happened. Wrong testicle removed. In the craziest mishap ever, a guy visited a urologist thinking he had it all figured out, and he decided to remove the right testicle. But hold on to your seats. In a shocking turn of events, he ended up removing the wrong testicle and even performed a vasectomy on the opposite side. Little did they know, the right testicle was still hanging in there. The patient, understandably distressed, filed a lawsuit fearing a lifetime of hormone therapy. Prior to the surgery, any touch caused excruciating pain. And let's just say things weren't exactly standing tall. Unfortunately, things only got worse post-surgery, as the pain skyrocketed. The urologist's feeble excuse? The left and right crossed paths. Well, that theory didn't hold up for long. The jury recognized the gravity of the situation and ruled in favor of the patient, awarding him a whopping $870,000. He should have got millions. Drilling the wrong side. It was a warm summer day in Rhode Island when an 86-year-old man was rushed to the hospital with bleeding on his brain. Time was of the essence, and the medical team quickly prepared him for emergency surgery. Enter Dr. Frederick Harrington, an experienced neurosurgeon with over 30 years of experience. But oh boy, something went terribly wrong. Dr. Harrington operated on the wrong side of the patient's head. Can you believe it? The team eventually realized the mistake and corrected it, but sadly, the patient's condition worsened, and he passed away weeks later. It triggered an investigation, and the hospital suspended Harrington's surgical privileges. Lesson learned: proper procedures are crucial in the operating room. The case of the forgotten sponge. Next up, a 42-year-old Japanese woman walks into a primary care clinic complaining about bloating. Now, bloating is never fun, but this lady had been dealing with it for a whopping 3 years. Talk about dedication. So, they decided to do a CT scan on her belly. And what did they find? Not one, but 2 masses with strings attached to them. It's like a magic trick gone wrong. Turns out, during a previous C-section, some forgetful surgeon left 2 gauze sponges inside her abdomen. Oopsie-daisy! These sponges had been partying in there for at least 6 years. No wonder she was feeling bloated, right? Luckily, they finally removed the sponges, and the woman's symptoms magically disappeared. The curious case of the vanishing spleen. Sarah Jane Parfit, a spunky woman who went in for kidney surgery, but ended up playing hide-and-seek with her spleen instead. Yeah, you heard that right. The surgeon mixed up the organs like a game of medical bingo. Now, poor Parfit is left spleenless and feeling vulnerable. The spleen is like the immune system's superhero, and without it, she needs more shots than a dartboard. To add a twist to the tale, this surgical slip-up happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, making it even more uh-oh. Parfit decided to take legal action, showing those responsible that they spleenly messed up. A comedy of medical errors. Blake Vaughn, a young dude from Blacksburg, Virginia, was all set to head home after his hospital stay. But here's where the plot thickens. Guess who shows up to remove his IV line? A nurse with absolutely zero experience in the matter. The guy was literally gasping for air. Seriously, a bubble of air in the wrong place turned the scene into a real-life soap opera. Poor Blake. In front of his devastated parents, he took his final blow. The hospital's negligence was crystal clear, and it's high time they face the music for this avoidable tragedy. Let's hope they learn from this and make sure that every nurse knows the drill. The wrong leg amputated. In an unbelievable mix-up at an Austrian hospital, an elderly gentleman fell victim to an astonishing case of mistaken identity during surgery. Can you imagine? The poor 82-year-old was supposed to have his left leg amputated, but thanks to a human error, yeah, that's what they called it, his right leg was mistakenly taken instead. The hospital quickly owned up to its mistake, blaming it on a worker who marked the wrong leg. It's a disastrous combination of circumstances, they said. Sadly, the patient passed away before the court case, unrelated to the amputation blunder. The hospital expressed deep regret and promised to tighten their processes to avoid such absurd incidents in the future. Breast implant blunders. In the crazy world of plastic surgery, even boobs can lead to disaster. Take the case of Emily Nugent, a young patient who went for a boob job at Colorado Aesthetic and Plastic Surgery. But instead of perky breasts, she got a one-way ticket to the Twilight Zone. The surgeon, Dr. Jeffrey Kim, and his nurse turned her anesthesia session into a nap that never ended, leaving poor Emily in a vegetative state. Talk about a knockout procedure. Lawsuits were filed, and the delay in calling 911 for 5 whole hours had everyone scratching their heads. While charges were laid against Dr. Kim and his nurse, they won't bring Emily back. Let's hope the fiasco wakes up the medical world and reminds them to stick to the script of patient safety. Mastectomy mix-ups. Picture this. You're at a hospital in Nova Scotia, Canada, awaiting cancer treatment. But thanks to a mix-up, you end up playing musical chairs with your test results. 2 patients got tangled in this web of confusion, and the consequences were no laughing matter. One unfortunate lady had her breast removed in a mastectomy she didn't even need. Meanwhile, the other patient's necessary surgery was delayed until someone sorted out the mess. Can you believe it? The Capital District Health Authority admitted to their colossal blunders, but the damage was done. The patient suffered emotional distress and anger at the unnecessary procedures. It's a wake-up call for healthcare providers everywhere to keep their ducks in a row and prioritize patient safety. This is also the problem with socialized communist Marxist medical care. Let's hope they learn from this and put an end to such mix-ups once and for all. Has a medical mishap ever happened to you? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Until next time.